Good Monday morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Right now on Morning News Now, weekend of mass shootings. Starting in Buffalo, where 10 people who were at a supermarket on a Saturday afternoon were killed in what appears to be a racially motivated shooting. Most of the victims were black. The shooter, white, with investigators looking into a potential manifesto and saying he was targeting a predominantly black area. This community now devastated.
I saw the gunman and I seen the 3 people that when I was walking in the store, they was laid out on the ground dead.
Nobody knew that they wouldn't make it home.
The latest on the investigation and what we're learning about the 10 victims. Also, violence at church. Worshippers at a church in Southern California became the targets of another mass shooting this weekend, with 1 person dead and 5 others hurt. How churchgoers were able to take down the gunman before police arrived. Joining the alliance, Finland and Sweden inch closer to joining NATO in a major statement to Russia against its invasion of Ukraine. The impact this could have on tensions between Russia and the West as Ukrainian forces push back the Russians in the country's second largest city of Kharkiv. The latest on the counteroffensive along the Russian border. Plus, white hot, Abercrombie and Fitch, the hugely popular clothing brand in the 90s and 2000s that had teens wanting to get their hands on anything the brand sold. Well, now a documentary is shining a light on the company's past. Things like discriminatory hiring practices and exclusionary marketing campaigns. What the filmmaker says inspired him to bring this issue to light. That's all later this hour. Begin, though, with a weekend of violence in America. President Joe Biden will travel to Buffalo, New York tomorrow after 10 people were killed and 3 others hurt in what appears to be a racist attack at a supermarket.
The accused gunman is 18 years old. Authorities say he's being held in isolation and is on suicide watch as the community mourns loved ones who were apparently targeted because of the color of their skin.
This is an absolute racist hate crime. It will be prosecuted as a hate crime. This is someone who has hate in their heart, soul, and mind.
It was just one of many mass shootings over the weekend. In Southern California, 1 person is dead and 5 others were hurt after a shooting at a meeting of Asian churchgoers. Members of the congregation were able to subdue the suspect and hogtie him until deputies arrived. The motivations in that shooting are currently unknown. We have live team coverage from both of those attacks with NBC News correspondent Gotti Schwartz in California and Jesse Kirsch in Buffalo, New York. Jesse, let's begin with you. So what is the latest on the ground there? What are you hearing from people who live in this community?
Hey, good morning, Joe. It's a sad morning here in Buffalo. This is the front page of the Buffalo News, a raw city trying to heal. And you can see behind us here that this supermarket where this carnage is said to have unfolded is still blocked off, still taped off with police on the scene. So this is still an active crime scene more than a day after authorities say 10 people were killed, another 3 shot in what is being called a hate crime, a racially motivated attack in the city of Buffalo, New York. People have questions. People are sharing all kinds of emotions out here. There have been candlelight vigils. There have been community groups meeting. There have been community groups trying to provide some kind of comfort. But there are questions from people. Where does this kind of alleged hate come from? How could something like this happen? And also, how do you move forward? These are the things that people are talking about. Some of what we've heard from residents here in Buffalo that we want to share with you from yesterday.
I saw the gunman and I seen the 3 people that when I was walking in the store, they was laid out on the ground dead. So the people that was in, if we would have walked in 3 minutes later, we probably would have been dead with them because everybody that was fronting the store, he killed them.
You think you were minutes away from being killed?
Yes, I know I was. I know we was. I was thinking God must have protected us because I don't know how we made it out the parking lot in that store before because it happened like seconds. We got in the store and then you start hearing gunshots.
This is a woman who said she went into the store right as the shooting was beginning to unfold, and she told me she walked in, saw people alive, and when she came out, Joe, they were dead.
Unreal. Jesse, you mentioned that that's an active crime scene behind you there. We know this investigation is still in its early stages. What are detectives focused on right now?
Well, we know that authorities are looking at an alleged manifesto that the suspect purportedly had put together leading up to this attack. This manifesto containing racist, anti-Semitic tropes. It also claims that the suspect became radicalized in an extremist forum in the early days of the pandemic because he was bored, Joe, because he was bored with what was going on in the world.
And Jesse, what is it we're learning about the victims in this situation in Buffalo?
We know that the youngest person shot, according to authorities, was 20 years old. The youngest person killed was 32, and the oldest person killed was 86. But specifically, we know that there was this hero security guard, Aaron Salter, who authorities say was a former Buffalo police officer. And you can see a photo of him there, along with the other 9 people who were killed. And you'll also notice that many of the people in this image, and we're told by authorities, 11 of the 13 people in total who were shot were black. Again, that authorities believe this was racist and hate-filled, this attack. Aaron Salter, though, we're told, engaged with the suspect, shot back at the suspect, but because the suspect had heavy armor on, according to authorities, in tactical gear, it did not stop him from continuing the rampage, but he's being hailed as a hero, Aaron Salter, for trying to stop the suspect and potentially saving lives. Aaron Salter, unfortunately, was among those who was shot and killed.
A hero among so many lives lost. Jesse Kirsch, thank you so much for your reporting from Buffalo. Appreciate it.
Let's now bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos for more on the shooting. Danny, good to have you with us. So New York State Police and the Justice Department are investigating this shooting as a hate crime and a case of racially motivated violent extremism. Walk us through what the legal implications are for classifying the mass shooting this way.
Both the state of New York and the federal government have hate crimes legislation. They're not exactly the same. In New York, it's essentially an enhancement. But generally speaking, the definition is pretty similar. Essentially, prosecutors, state or federal, would have to prove that the bias against someone's race, national origin, gender, any of the protected classes was a but-for cause. In other words, if not for that person's race, the crime would not have been committed. That's from a recent Supreme Court case just a few years ago, analyzing what it exactly means to target someone because of their race. And the Supreme Court went a long way to define that, but it still is a tricky definition because, after all, in our American system of justice, normally motive is not an element of crime. Hate crimes are an exception to that rule because they do take motive and make it an element of a crime, which is why candidly, most prosecutors may not admit this, but they don't look to use hate crimes right away unless they know they can prove it, because it is a risky prosecution.
And Danny, we know the shooter is pleading not guilty to the attack. What kind of legal argument can a defense attorney make in a case like this? I mean, especially when in this case we have the fact that this was actually being live streamed by the shooter.
Look, and so far what I see is that he has the public defender, and, public defenders especially, they don't get to pick their facts. This might be eventually a plea agreement, or you might have a client in this situation who doesn't care and wants to go to trial at all costs. So even though it seems like the odds are against this defendant, at your initial appearance, you have to plead not guilty, if for no other reason than to have a bargaining chip to go into that office with the prosecutors and hopefully secure some kind of favorable plea bargain. But again, the client constitutionally has the absolute right to go to trial, even if it is a hopeless case, what we call in the defense business a dead bang loser.
Oh, interesting. Danny, I want to get more into the legal parameters here for a social media company like Twitch, one of the places this was being live streamed. What kind of scrutiny do you think they will face for having this live stream up for almost 2 minutes before it was taken down? And what kind of legal action could be taken, if any?
Generally speaking, websites that host this kind of activity, that allow users to post, are immune from liability under federal law. And of course, always is the case in technology that technology outpaces the law. I mean, a few years ago, the idea of live streaming an attack like this might have been unrealistic. But now this is a very real possibility, and we see that it has happened. Now, on the one hand, law enforcement loves this because it creates treasure troves of evidence to make their case airtight. But on the other hand, is there some form of liability for these companies that allow people to post but don't censor? Under federal law, probably not, but it doesn't mean there won't be increased scrutiny.
Danny, does this lead to a bigger conversation, in your opinion, in a legal context about social media companies needing to do a better job at regulating hate speech on their platforms? Between that conversation with Twitch, of course, we know this sort of manifesto posted to Google Docs. Do you think this could lead to new laws when it comes to speech in general?
Oh, yes, because existing laws will not achieve what those folks want who want social media companies to police their activity. In other words, social media companies generally don't have a huge responsibility to police what is posted on their websites because they're essentially protected by federal law. So if folks want that to change, the most direct way to do that is through the representative form of government. Change the law, create new federal legislation that decreases that protection for social media companies as it stands. Because once they get into creating content, they can be held liable. But as long as they're sitting back and saying, hey, our users just post whatever they want, they have a modicum, a small degree of protection that the rest of us, certainly a media company, would not have.
Danny Ceballos, as always, we so appreciate your expertise and analysis this morning. Now, Southern California is also reeling from gun violence this morning after a man opened fire at a meeting of Asian churchgoers on Sunday. One person died and 5 were injured, all of Asian descent. The suspect, who police described as an Asian man in his 60s, is currently in custody. Joining us now is NBC News correspondent Gadi Schwartz. Gadi, good morning. Thanks for being there for us. Now, this could have been much worse. If not, we know for the heroism of some in that congregation. Tell us what happened inside that church on Sunday.
Yeah, good morning, Savannah. Yesterday afternoon, it started off as a normal Sunday with a church banquet that was wrapping up with around 30 to 40 people. When police say right around 1:30, a man with 2 guns somehow had locked the indoors inside so people couldn't escape, and then opened fire. Witnesses say they saw people taking cover. Several elderly members were hit in the gunfire. And then when the gunman went to reload, the pastor who had earlier given this sermon took a chair and hit him over the head with it. Others rushed in to tackle the gunman, hogtie him with electrical cords. The sheriff's office says there is no doubt that they saved lives.
Wow. Just pretty incredible. Now, police.
We believe a group of churchgoers detained him and hogtied his legs with an extension cord and confiscated at least 2 weapons from him. He was detained when the deputies arrived. That group of churchgoers displayed what we believe is exceptional heroism and bravery in intervening to stop the suspect. They undoubtedly prevented additional injuries and fatalities.
Still such a horrible tragedy that could have been so much worse. Savannah?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, police have stressed that the investigation is in its early stages and they have not determined a motive. But what do we know at this point about the suspect and what's next for him?
At this point, we're still waiting to hear exactly who this gunman was. But according to local reports, it doesn't seem as though he was known to this congregation. Witnesses say that they saw him earlier in the day attending the church, even telling somebody that he had been there before. But this was somebody that they didn't recognize. And as you mentioned, the shooter is described in his 60s, of Asian descent. The sheriff says he does not appear to live in that area, but so far they haven't released his identity or any other details.
Now, 5 people were taken to the hospital, we mentioned, for gunshot wounds, all senior citizens. What do we know about their condition this morning?
Yeah, Savannah, almost all of the people who were shot were elderly. There were 4 men, a 92-year-old, an 82-year-old, a 75-year-old, as well as a man in his 60s, and an 86-year-old woman. All of them rushed to the hospital. Only one of them suffered from minor injuries. All the others are in critical condition. Savannah.
All right, Gadi Schwartz, thank you so much.
And more deadly violence over the weekend. 2 people were killed and 3 others were critically hurt after a shootout at a Houston area flea market Sunday. Authorities say the 5 people were involved in an altercation that quickly escalated when at least 2 people pulled out guns and started shooting. 2 men believed to be connected to the altercation died at the scene. 3 others, including one suspect, were rushed to the hospital. Another suspect was arrested at the scene.
Coming up, we're following the latest in Ukraine, where the country's military is pushing back against the Russians.
We're on the ground in Ukraine next with a new decision by other European countries that could escalate tensions between Russia and the West.
Plus, lockdown. North Korea announces its first COVID patients since the pandemic began. What the situation is like in the country now as North Korea's leader tries to control the spread after the break.
This morning, Sweden's parliament is debating a potential bid to join NATO after the country's ruling Social Democratic Party signaled on Sunday its willingness to join the alliance. Earlier Sunday, neighboring Finland formally announced it would apply to join the group. The decision by two historically neutral countries marks a huge shift in defense policy, could have an impact on Russia's war with Ukraine. NATO members welcomed the potential move by Finland and Sweden at a foreign ministers meeting yesterday, except for Turkey, which expressed some reservations. NATO Secretary General called it a historic moment for making a damning assessment of what's happening in Ukraine.
Russia's war in Ukraine is not going as Moscow had planned. They failed to take Kiev. They are pulling back from around Kharkiv. Their major offensive in Donbass has stalled. Russia is not achieving its strategic objectives.
NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin joins us now from Kyiv. So, Aaron, before we get to the latest on the ground there, I do have to ask you about Finland and Sweden, their bids to join NATO. What's the reaction been like to these potential applications, and why is Turkey potentially opposed to it?
Yeah, well, the overall majority of NATO member states, Joe, see this as a welcome development. Keep in mind, if Finland alone joins the alliance, it'll effectively double the alliance's border with Russia. They both have large militaries. It's seen as potentially hugely strengthening to the alliance, and that's perhaps why the NATO Secretary General at the weekend announced that he would like to see their applications fast-tracked. Take a listen to what he had to say.
So my intention is still to have a quick and swift process where we will then sit down with Finland and Sweden if they apply, agree the accession protocol, and then hope and work for a very speedy ratification process in the 30 parliaments. That will take some time. There's no way to prevent that.
Now, if their applications are in fact submitted, it would require unanimous approval from all NATO member states, and that includes Turkey. On Friday, the Turkish president expressing his skepticism at Sweden in particular joining the alliance. He was citing his reservations about their perceived, in his words, support for pro-Kurdish militant parties. That being said, the NATO Secretary General at the weekend said that they are talking through those concerns with Turkey. He sees them as something that they could work through and does not expect that to hinder the application process in any way.
Aaron, I also want to ask you about the ongoing battle in eastern Ukraine. This morning, the governor of Kharkiv said that Ukrainian troops who are counterattacking in that region have reached the border with Russia. Help us understand what's going on there.
Yeah, well, for weeks, Kharkiv, which is the second largest city in Ukraine, has been under intense Russian bombardment, Russian forces moving in the early days of the invasion in an attempt to encircle Kharkiv, seen as a critical city, also kind of connecting, potential connector to their offensive in the Donbass region as well. But Ukraine in recent weeks launching what appears to be a successful counter-offensive, not only stopping Russian forces from encircling that city, but also, according to Ukrainian military, pushing them back to the border. And military analysts have already declared Ukraine to be the winner of the battle for Kharkiv, which is perhaps why the NATO Secretary General over the weekend pointing to the fact that Russian troops are withdrawing from that area, coupled with the fact that Russian forces lost the battle for Kyiv, an apparent inability of Russia to take key strategic cities, which is why NATO, in NATO's assessment, they believe that Ukraine could absolutely win this war, which is why they're really throwing their support behind sending in those heavy weapons that Ukraine says is absolutely essential to win this fight. Joe.
Quickly, Aaron, I want to ask about that steel plant in Mariupol. What's the latest on the wounded soldiers who are trapped inside there?
Yeah, well, that steel plant continues to be bombarded by Russian forces, by air and by land. There are serious negotiations, tense negotiations, tough negotiations, in the words of Ukrainian officials, ongoing to try and evacuate wounded Ukrainian soldiers. Ukrainian officials say there are about 38 wounded soldiers, but those negotiations so far have not yielded the kind of evacuations that we saw just days ago when they managed to evacuate 500 civilians from that steel plant. But those negotiations are ongoing. Meanwhile, there is a humanitarian catastrophe unfolding outside of the steel plant in the rest of the city, Mariupol. Just yesterday, the deputy mayor saying they're having serious problems with the city's water supply. The mayor saying the entire city, which it includes thousands of civilians currently trapped, needs to be completely evacuated. Joe.
All right, Aaron, in Ukraine. Thank you.
Let's now bring in Joe Cirincione. He's a distinguished fellow at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. Joe, always great to have you with us. So let's start with the potential expansion of NATO. Sweden appears to be on the verge of joining Finland in this application push. Russia has called this potential move a threat, warned of retaliation, which could include deploying nuclear weapons to the Baltic. Are you concerned that if these Nordic countries join NATO, we could see a sharp escalation in nuclear risks?
You know, when people say that the Russian invasion of Ukraine has changed geopolitics, has created a new security paradigm, forcing us to reevaluate threats, this is what they mean. Sweden and Finland's shift is historic. Sweden has been a neutral country for centuries, back to the Swedish Empire. Finland's been neutral for decades. What they're saying by joining NATO now is, one, they think the Ukraine war is going to go on for some time. Two, that they think that the threat from Russia is going to continue even after the Ukraine war is over. And three, that the Russian leadership is so erratic and what they say revisionist, meaning seeking territorial gain, that there is no choice but to pick a side here. They can no longer afford to remain neutral. This will greatly strengthen NATO resources militarily, economically, geopolitically, even though it now brings the NATO border right up against Russia, something that Putin had wanted to avoid, but his war in Ukraine has created the very situation he was hoping to prevent.
Absolutely. 830 miles along their border, in fact. Now, we've talked recently about the potential for Russia to annex parts of Ukraine that it captures. Now, whether that's Kherson in the south, which we were talking about last week, or that Donbas region in the east, what would that mean? Walk us through this. If that does happen, what does that ultimately mean for Ukraine and for Russia?
As you just reported, you're seeing these two developments in this region now. One, up in the northern part, you're seeing the Ukrainians push back to the Russian border. That photo you showed of the Ukrainian troops, they're at the Russian border marker. That's that post. That's why they're taking their picture there. This is quite remarkable. And so the Russian response has been to concentrate on the more southern part of that, the Luhansk Oblast or province, and they're hoping to seize that in coming weeks and declare that part of Russia. What that would mean is that any further attacks on the Luhansk area that Russia controls would be considered an attack on Russia and possibly justify the use of nuclear weapons. That's their doctrine. They would use nuclear weapons first to repel an attack on Russian territory. Luhansk would then be Russian territory. It increases the nuclear risks in this war.
Joe, British military intelligence says, though, that Russia has, quote, lost momentum in the east of Ukraine and that it's lost, in fact, about a third of its forces. Why do you think Russia is struggling so much in this eastern offensive, and how long can it go on for?
Well, this is a blockbuster intelligence report out today. This is you're citing the United Kingdom's intelligence assessment that Russia may have lost 1/3 of its combat forces. That's 30,000, maybe 40,000 men killed or wounded, no longer able to compete. This squares with the Ukrainian figures that they've been putting out for weeks now that most of us thought were exaggerated. No, they're not exaggerated. The Russian force has been decimated. I can't overstate what a huge strategic defeat this is for Putin. I mean, empires fall on the basis of military blunders like this. This is why they're falling back. They don't have the manpower to fill out the units. They don't have the equipment to replace the equipment that's being destroyed. It's a remarkable failure for Putin's invasion. It seems to be getting worse for him every day.
Wow, empires fall. What a way to put it. Joe Cirincione, as always, thanks for your time this morning.
North Korea continues to be in a nationwide lockdown as the country grapples with a COVID outbreak. Last week was the first time North Korea acknowledged an outbreak, announcing its first COVID patients since the pandemic began. And now hundreds of thousands of people are reported to have COVID-like symptoms. NBC News foreign correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer joins us now from Beijing with the latest on this. Janice, good morning to you. So after claiming to have been COVID-free for 2 years now, North Korea is dealing with this crisis. As far as we know, what's the situation like in the country this morning? And do we know how the virus slipped through that country's very tight borders?
Well, more than 1 million people are now believed to be sick with COVID-19, what officials in Pyongyang are calling a fever. State media is reporting that at least 50 people have died since the end of April. And because there's no real testing capacity in North Korea, the number of confirmed cases is quite low compared to the reality of what is being called an explosive outbreak. Right up until last week, North Korea had claimed that it had had zero COVID infections, but there have been major outbreaks on its borders here in China, as well as the border with South Korea. So now the challenge is trying to get help for a country that has very little experience with controlling or treating a virus that has now swept around the world.
Yeah, so what is the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un trying to do to get things under control? You mentioned they don't really have testing. Do they have any treatments or vaccines for the virus? Anything like that?
Well, he's been convening emergency meetings and berating officials, of course. He's been blaming his cabinet and public health workers for being slow with their pandemic response and for allowing the virus to spread. The military has been deployed to enforce these quarantines and also to stabilize drug supplies. They have an estimated 500,000 people now in quarantine. There is an impoverished healthcare infrastructure in North Korea, along with wide-scale malnutrition, and there is no vaccine program. So there are very few people who have any sort of protection against COVID-19. Early on, North Korea had rejected vaccines from COVAX, the program that was set up to help low-income countries. They did so when they sealed the country's borders back in January 2020. So the need is vast.
Janice, thank you for your reporting. Appreciate it.
Let's now bring in Dr. Amish Adalja for more. He's a senior scholar at the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. Doctor, good morning. So President Biden says the U.S. is ready to share COVID vaccine technology with the rest of the world. First, let's listen and we'll talk on the other side.
The United States will share critical COVID-19 technologies through the World Health Organization COVID-19 Technology Access Pool. We're making available health technologies that are owned by the United States government, including stabilized spike protein that is used in many COVID-19 vaccines.
So, Doctor, we've talked a lot about how this is this global problem, not just something here at home, not contained to borders. So what do you make of this? I mean, is it too late for the U.S. to be doing this? Will this make a big difference for other countries?
At this stage, the manufacturers that we have are able to vaccinate the world, or at least create enough vaccines to supply the world. The problem what we're seeing is that there's steps that need to be taken to turn a vaccine into a vaccination, meaning you've got to store it in cold storage, you've got to find syringes, needles, people to actually distribute the vaccine into people's arms. That's what the problem is right now. So I think while this technology transfer will help with developing vaccine industries in other countries, it's not going to solve the immediate problem of turning all the vaccines we have from Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, J&J into actual vaccinations.
Oh, interesting. I see. Now we're seeing another wave of COVID in the U.S. with cases up in nearly every single state. Some are saying we're in the middle of a fifth wave. Now, keeping in mind that at the same time cases are up, we are still seeing deaths remain relatively low. But since so many people are catching this again, what does it say about booster vaccine guidance? Where are we at with that? And do you think it's time to update it? Should more people be getting an additional booster?
I don't think so, because when you look at what the boosters do, they really are targeted and specific to preventing severe disease. And we haven't seen erosion of protection against severe disease except for high-risk populations. So those people should be boosted. But with these Omicron variants, what we see is just 2 to 3 weeks after you get a booster, you lose protection against infection. So what we need are better vaccine technologies if we're going to try to prevent infection. And at the same time, while we're developing those vaccines, we have to emphasize that high-risk people need to be boosted and up to date with their vaccines. low-risk people, the average risk person, probably does not benefit much from getting a booster because they're still protected from severe disease.
And doctor, I've got another vaccine question for you. Novavax says it believes that the FDA Advisory Committee will approve its vaccine series for the U.S. Is having another type of vaccine on the market important? Will it be necessary by the time fall comes around? Do we need another one?
I think we do need to have as many vaccines available as possible because we want to be able to mix and match, see which ones work best against which variants. And remember, there are some people who, for whatever reason, have turned against the mRNA vaccines. We still have about 1/3 of the U.S. population that's not fully vaccinated. Maybe they would like a protein-based vaccine like Novavax. So that's also something that we might see with this vaccine.
All right, Dr. Amish Adalja, as always, thanks for joining us.
Now to the baby formula shortage and some eye-opening numbers. Nearly 43% of the nation's formula stock is gone. 8 states are already above that number, with nearly 50% of formula out of stock in those places. And experts say relief may not be coming anytime soon. The Biden administration says it plans to import formula from countries like Mexico, Chile, Ireland, and the Netherlands. Congress is also expected to discuss immediate actions to stop the shortage this week. In the meantime, doctors are asking parents not to mix formula with any water as a way to extend current supplies. All right, let's get a check on your morning news now. Weather.
Michelle Grossman joins us now. Hey, Michelle, good morning.
Good morning to you both. So happy to see you on this Monday. And we are talking severe weather for a good part of the eastern half of the nation, including the Northeast into the mid-Atlantic. We are already seeing showers and storms this morning, a line of storms with a cold front that's going to move through. Really summer-like ahead of the cold front. Soupy conditions, humid, also warm. So let's go ahead and take a look at radar and show you what is happening right now and then what we expect to happen as we go throughout the next several hours into this evening. So here's that cold front. You can see the lightning entering the state of Pennsylvania, and that's going to all move to the east. So this is from the Severe Prediction Center. 62 million people at risk today for widespread damaging winds over 60 miles per hour. We do have the chance for hail as well, and also a few tornadoes, most likely where you see the orange, including Albany, Philadelphia, D.C. into Baltimore. We do have a slight risk for severe storms. That's stretching from parts of New England, including New York City, down to Roanoke and also Raleigh. So a good part of the Northeast into the mid-Atlantic under the gun for storms today. Now, as we head further to the west, we do have a small part of the panhandle of Texas, also New Mexico, under a slight risk for severe storms. We're also concerned about flooding rain, localized flash flooding in some spots. That's because we could see really slow-moving thunderstorms with heavy downpours. That's going to bring rainfall rates may exceed an inch per hour. That could bring some localized flooding for sure. Where you see the darker colors, the yellows, the reds, the oranges, that's where we could see that localized flooding. So there's that cold front moving through that warm, humid air, and we're looking at the chance for severe storms from Maine to the Carolinas, and also looking at the chance for a few tornadoes there. That risk moves into the plains tomorrow, 5 million at risk. Again, we could see winds gusting over 60 miles per hour. And it is sweltering still in the south. This is a 9th straight day of record highs in the south, especially in Texas with that jet stream so far to the north. You guys, we could see temperatures in the upper 90s, some spots over 100 degrees today.
All right. Going to be sweltering there. All right. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah. More extremes. Thanks. See you in a bit. And coming up, the shooting in Buffalo is once again bringing up the issues of gun violence and hate in America.
What lawmakers in New York are saying about the investigation and what they want to see happen next to avoid another tragedy.
Plus, we're just one day away from a key primary election in the swing state of Pennsylvania, where the races stand right now, and the reason one candidate spent the final weekend of campaigning in the hospital. That's after the break. We're back now with more on the deadly shooting at that grocery store in Buffalo.
Police are classifying the attack as a racially motivated hate crime after the gunman targeted a supermarket that serves a mostly black community in the city. 10 people were killed. We want to bring in Grady Lewis, who was one of the eyewitnesses in the parking lot of the Tops grocery store when the shooting began. Grady, thank you for joining us. Just, if you don't mind, walk us through what it is you saw on Saturday and what the scene was like.
Well, I was across the street, I heard a gunshot, and I looked up, and all I seen was white smoke, and a guy in army fatigue, and he was just going left to right, just shooting people falling. And then I seen a security guard run in and the store to get cover, and I seen him dug down and do an army-style move going in the store, shooting. And the police arrived, and then he came out, put the gun to his head, took off his gloves, put down his gun, took off his bulletproof vest, got on his knees, laid on his stomach, and then put his hands behind his back, and then the police arrested him at that point in time.
Again, this is just a Saturday afternoon at a grocery store, what you're describing. And now, Grady, you also spoke with our colleague Kate Snow this weekend, and you described what you say was your interaction with the shooter at this grocery store the day before the attack happened. Can you tell us about that encounter?
Yes. It's really hard to explain. I'm still trying to process how did I feel when I saw him. He looked out of place, not because he was white. It's just a feeling I had about him and intuition. Yes, definitely energy that made me say, well, let me talk to this guy. And I talked to him for like an hour and 45 minutes. And I actually even bought him something to drink because he did seem a little nervous. But I wasn't able to get anything out of him where I could at least have called the police and warned people to hope so this tragedy wouldn't have happened.
When you saw him then on Saturday, did you quickly make the connection and see the man and go, that's the guy I talked to just the day before? And what went through your mind then?
Not at all. Not until he got arrested and I seen a picture, but his face was down. I said, that kind of looked like the kid I talked to on Friday. I mean, and then I heard he was 18. He came from 2 to 3 hours away. And I'm like, the kid I talked to said he was 18 and was from 2 hours away. But I'm saying no, still. And then I seen when he got out the car, and I was like, if his car is blue, because I watched him go to his car on Friday. And I was like, if that car is blue, and it was blue, I'm still saying, no, that's not the kid I talked to. Then they said TMZ broke the report that his name. I said, they better not say his name was Peyton. And it said his name was Peyton. And at this point, I'm still like, that can't be that same kid. Not until like 4 in the morning, actually, that showed me the mug shot, and I seen his picture, and I'm like, that's that kid. And that's when I actually broke down and started crying. Like, I actually talked to this kid. I knew it.
And
I didn't know that he was shooting anybody.
Right. In that 45 minutes to an hour that you spent speaking with him again at this same location, what did you talk about? I mean, any indication that something was off? No. This is the feeling I had that he didn't belong there for a reason. But he had a shirt on that said genius. So I wanted to see if the kid was a genius. We talked about string theory. We talked about dark matter. We talked about black holes, white holes in space. We talked about beginning of civilization and ancient history. We really went down a long ride because I really still felt like something is wrong. Why is he up here from that far away to a city that he knows nobody in the middle of the city where black people are? What is he doing here? But he gave no indication that he was going to come back the next day and shoot anybody.
Grady, real quickly, how are you doing right now?
I have no idea how I'm doing right now. I've seen people getting shot with a rifle. I don't know what it was. That was shooting smoke, and they didn't have a chance to defend themselves. I heard that noise inside the store in fear because I have family members, people I knew, loved ones in that store, and I'm hearing the echoes of that gunshot. Them gunshots, 30 or 40 rounds, I'm hearing, and I'm just screaming and yelling, and I'm torn apart. I don't know how to feel right now, but it happens all across this country, and it's sad.
Grady, we are thinking of you, and we are thinking of your community. Thanks for taking a few minutes to join us this morning. Grady Lewis, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Now, on this week's Meet the Press, Buffalo Mayor Byron Brown and New York Governor Kathy Hochul discussed the deadly supermarket shooting. Plus, Senator Bernie Sanders spoke about abortion and the state of the Democratic Party heading into the midterms. Here's a look at the highlights with Meet the Press moderator Chuck Todd.
Can you tell me about the latest on the investigation? You know, all of it is still under apparently racially motivated. It certainly seems like we're getting close to dropping the apparently.
We are getting close to dropping that. Law enforcement has been working together around the clock since this occurred at every level, federal, state, county, city and pieced together very quickly that this was a racially motivated attack. The individual that committed this crime drove from several hours away. They were not from this community, and they drove here with the express purpose of taking black lives.
Well, let's talk about holding these internet companies responsible. Do you think they should be held responsible for the easy spread of this propaganda?
I hold them responsible for not monitoring and alerting law enforcement. That's exactly because of the issue here is that it is fomenting. People are sharing these ideas. They're sharing videos of other attacks, and they're all copycat. They all want to be the next great white hope that can inspire the next attack. We can't let that continue, and we know where it's occurring. It's not happening in the basement of a KKK meeting anymore, where you have a limited number of people who are succumbing to these evil influences. This is happening globally. That's the responsibility of the internet, and the individuals who are responsible are the ones who own these companies, and I'm going to be talking to them directly. I'll protect the First Amendment any day of the week, but you don't protect hate speech. You don't protect incendiary speech. You're not allowed to scream fire in a crowded theater. There are limitations on speech, and right now we have seen this run rampant. And as a result, I have 10 dead neighbors.
I do find it interesting that at this particular moment, when literally a woman's right to choose is right at stake, that we have too many Democrats who are prepared to support a candidate in Texas who is one of the few anti-pro-choice members of Congress.
Do you think at this point, being pro-life, you can't be in the Democratic Party or in the Democratic coalition?
We will see. All that I can say is I think you have the overwhelming majority of people who consider themselves to be Democrats, to be pro-choice. I have been pro-choice my entire life, and the candidates that I am supporting now are all pro-choice. Look, a woman's right to control her own body is really on the line, and we've got to do everything we can to defend that right.
Our thanks to Chuck Todd for that wrap-up and those interviews.
In our County to County series this morning, we're heading to Pennsylvania, a key swing state with wide open races for Senate and governor. The primary elections are tomorrow. We've got some bombshell health news and some late endorsements that are shaking up the contests in their final hours. NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard joins us now from Eastern Pennsylvania. Vaughn, good morning to you. So let's start with the Democratic primary for Pennsylvania's open Senate seat. We're learning the Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, who's the presumed frontrunner, is recovering from a stroke and is, quote, taking a minute from the campaign trail. How is this news changing the race?
Yeah, good morning, Joe. To our understanding, the lieutenant governor is still in the hospital at this hour here. He was off the campaign trail for 2 days, and it was not until just yesterday, late yesterday afternoon, when the candidate's campaign put out not only a statement, but also a video that you're seeing in part now, clearly showing John Fetterman, the leading U.S. Senate candidate and current lieutenant governor, appearing to be okay, but saying that doctors are urging him to stay in the hospital at this time. Of course, tomorrow is the major primary day here in Pennsylvania, and he had a healthy lead, a sturdy lead in this Democratic primary against Congressman Connor Lamb. And the question is, to what extent does this potentially change the dynamics of this race? Again, though, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, despite being in the hospital, is expected to win this primary. But Congressman Connor Lamb was always long thought to be a solidly viable candidate. And the question is, what ultimately happens tomorrow?
Vaughn, let's talk about the Republican side. The race is pretty tight there. TV personality Dr. Mehmet Oz is fending off a late surge now from Kathy Barnett. What should we know about this race at this point?
I mean, these are the crazy dynamics of the Republican Party in 2022, Joe. You're essentially looking at a three-way tie. A new Emerson poll is similarly matching what I'm hearing from these campaigns and several of the operations that are investing millions of dollars in campaign ads on behalf of one candidate or another, and that this is a dead heat. You know, you can see in this poll 28, 24, 21, but at any given hour, you're hearing that it's a three-way dead heat, and there is no candidate, no campaign that is assured of themselves in this here. You know, David McCormick is the other name we've got to mention here. He's the former CEO of a major hedge fund who is also very much in this race. And I was talking with an individual close to Donald Trump's political operation. And they have backed and endorsed Mehmet Oz in this race. But the concern is that Kathy Barnett, who sort of shot up out of nowhere, she has a scant operation, not the one that has tens of millions of dollars behind it. And yet here in just the last few days, she has shot up in the polls. There are a lot of questions about her past, particularly past statements, homophobic, Islamophobic statements in which she called for the banning of Islam in the United States. I asked her about that yesterday, and there's that's almost defying of her past statements that run completely contradictory to who she was, or at least a couple years ago, and who she claims to be now. But that may not stop her from winning this Republican nomination, Joe.
We'll see what happens tomorrow night, and that 15% undecided in that poll could be key. All right, Vaughn, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Coming up, a lot of us remember when Abercrombie and Fitch was one of the most popular clothing brands.
It was a familiar sight at malls across the country. Now it's front and center in a new documentary calling out the way it targeted teens and its hiring practices. We're going to take you behind the scenes with one of the producers of the documentary next. If you're a millennial, you may have grown up begging your parents to buy you anything from Abercrombie and Fitch. The brand was known for prep-style clothes, strong perfumes, and models outside nearly every store.
That's right, but Abercrombie and Fitch quickly became the focus of national attention when it was accused of discriminatory hiring practices and exclusionary marketing campaigns. Now, 9 employees joined a class action lawsuit back in 2003 for racial and gender discrimination. The company settled the case, paying out $40 million and agreeing to change its practices and promote diversity. They did not admit to being guilty of discrimination. Now some of those former employees are speaking out in a new Netflix documentary, White Hot, The Rise and Fall of Abercrombie and Fitch.
Abercrombie and Fitch said, we go after the cool kids. If they didn't look a certain way, they didn't belong in our clothing. Are we exclusionary? Absolutely.
As a manager, you have to recruit good-looking people, and this is what good-looking is.
Young, thin, and white. Abercrombie rooted themselves in discrimination at every single level. There's a reason people liked that brand. Exclusion is part of our society.
The company has released a statement on Instagram in response to the documentary, saying in part, quote, our ongoing evolution has been so rewarding, and we want to be clear that the recently released documentary is not reflective of who we are now. We own and validate that there were exclusionary and inappropriate actions under former leadership. Activist and producer Ben O'Keefe joins us now for more on this documentary. Ben, good to have you with us this morning. So you're featured. We saw you there in this documentary for an important reason. You started a petition against the company at 18 years old, calling them out for what you saw as a lack of diversity. I mean, walk us through the journey. What was the moment when you decided something had to change?
Yeah, so Abercrombie and Fitch, as you'll see in White Hot, has a long history of discriminatory practices for years before I was ever involved. But flash forward to 2013, and I was 18 years old. I found a quote from the CEO, the former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch, Mike Jeffries, where he said they didn't want plus-size, uncool kids wearing their clothing. And then I found out the quote was 7 years old. And I said to myself, why has no one done something about this? And then I realized, wait, I'm someone. I can do something about this. And so I started a petition. I Googled, NBC producers and tried different combinations of email conventions until I had reached out to 200 people. And I woke up the next morning to a viral movement.
Now, remind us, just put in context for us, the impact Abercrombie and Fitch had in the 2000s, sort of how pervasive the brand was, how much people wanted those clothes, and also what its marketing often did look like.
Sure. I mean, Abercrombie and Fitch was synonymous with cool. If you were a cool kid, you wore Abercrombie and Fitch. It was expensive. It was only for pretty people. And, the brand was so synonymous with that, with body images of hot men like we're seeing on screen right now, who were shirtless. And that was building a culture of what it meant to be a cool kid in our society. And so we really are talking about something. I think it's hard for maybe even Gen Z or younger generations to understand what it was like to have one brand have such a strong control over this massive consumer base.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I worked at Abercrombie when I was in college. Very briefly, I was not one of the models. I was folding shirts in the back. We heard the statement
and wearing
there,
a shirt.
And wearing a shirt. Wearing a shirt and folding shirts, to be clear. You heard the statement there from Abercrombie saying they've changed their ways since then. In your opinion, has the company done enough to be more inclusive?
Look, this is a really important question, and I want to be very clear. I am happy to see any brand take steps to become more inclusive, not just because it's the right thing to do, but it's actually good for business objectively. But when we look at Abercrombie today, it's great to see the propaganda that they put out to show their inclusion. But I just want to say there's a difference between fixing your reputation and doing repair for the harm that you've done. And if you go on the corporate website of Abercrombie and Fitch right now and look at their leadership, it's predominantly white. If you look at their board, it's overwhelmingly white. And so for me, action has to mean making changes that give agency and do repair to the harm that actual people have been caused. And I think for Abercrombie and Fitch, the ad campaigns are nice, but I'm ready to see real change within their company.
Ben O'Keefe, thank you so much for joining us. Lots of people talking about this one. We appreciate your time this morning. It's called White Hot, The Rise and Fall of Abercrombie and Fitch, and it's now available to stream on Netflix. Now we're following the latest on the mass shooting in Buffalo, New York all morning.
That includes a moment to honor the victims, the community icon Buffalo has lost, and how her friends and family are paying tribute. We've got that story next. Welcome back. We want to take a moment to introduce you to one of the victims of this weekend's deadly shooting at the supermarket in Buffalo.
Yes, 77-year-old Pearl. She was a pillar of her community, opening her home to those in need and running a local food pantry. Here's NBC's senior national correspondent Kate Snow with a look at a woman whose life was taken too soon.
You didn't have to know Pearl Young to know women like her. She was the kind of hero you're likely to find in communities all over the country. Loved ones on social media remembering the 77-year-old today as the neighborhood mom and the sweetest person. They say Pearl opened her heart and home to those who needed a hot meal, encouragement, and kindness. In fact, for decades, she ran a food pantry in Buffalo. Those grieving are honoring her as the most beautiful soul who loved her church, God, and family. Pearl Young was the wife of a pastor, a mom, a beloved grandma, and auntie. And her family told us today that Pearl and the others gone much too soon in this tragedy will never be forgotten.
She was just so beautifully inside and out, because good always overshadowed evil. And to the people in the Buffalo community, we extend our condolences to all of the families that lost their loved ones.
Our thanks to Kate Snow for bringing us Pearl's story. That does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But the news continues right now. Stay with us.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.